Oh boy, gun show here on Extra Bases. We're back. How many hours are you back into the gym now a day?
We're back to 3. Certainly 2.5 to 3. 3 on the high side. It just depends on what I'm doing. And I will say this: the one thing that's changed is while I have a guideline every single day, it really just depends how my body feels every day, because I kind of hit it for a while. I went through this phase where I hit every muscle group like every day. And it was total body and I just built, and it actually worked pretty well. Then I went to heavy on the stairs, and then I tried to balance a little bit. So, it just depends on my body feels, but I don't feel right unless I'm in there sweating it out for an extended period of time at this point. I've always been that way. And I'm thankful that I have the time to do it.
Yeah, the time is everything. That's interesting you mention you don't feel right, because there are a lot of fan bases right now that don't feel right. One would be the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I think baseball fans hate to say old school compared to Muppets, but with the Clayton Kershaw situation of him being pulled after 80 pitches with a perfect game, I have no problem with it, Jeremy. I mean, it's early on in the season, and I'm going to bring up a name if you don't mention it about why it's okay to pull a guy at 80 pitches with a perfect game. Reggie Jackson came out. He was very upset about it. I think Ferguson Jenkins, who I follow on Twitter, he may have mentioned something about it as well. The historic implications of a perfect game and how Kershaw would want to stay in. And Kershaw, to his credit, said that he understood and he hadn't picked up a baseball or hadn't done his normal routine since January. So where do you stand on all this?
So for me, starting with Clayton Kershaw, got to give him some credit for being a team guy. Riding with his front office, riding with his manager. You have to figure that's a little bit of a combination there, right? That's Dave Roberts watching his pitcher. That's Kershaw talking about how he feels. That's the front office having guidelines. I think all of the reasons why he came out are valid factors. I also, however, believe, and as much as I love spending time with Reggie, and I do, when he put that tweet out there, I followed him because he's the sentiment he has is correct. That doesn't come along all the time. The chances of Kershaw getting another opportunity to do that at this point in his life, ride it out, see where you're going to go. And Kershaw went ahead and put the ball club ahead of his own personal achievement. And that says a lot about who he is, as a person, as a teammate. But they're both kind of right. And so for me, it's this: if you're going to get hurt pitching a perfect game, then come out. Right. And I have a hard time saying those two words, by the way, so we'll just call it a perfecto. If you're going to get hurt pitching a perfecto, it's not worth the perfecto, but I understand the sentimental part of getting out there and being part of baseball lore, because it's really tough to do at any point in time, at any level, is pitch a perfect game.
Well, I mean, Justin Verlander had mentioned before spring training that in his mind, he had thought, geez, maybe I could come back for this World Series run and contribute. And his doctor said, listen, if you want to go out in a blaze of glory, because you may not be able to pitch again after that. Now, granted, these are different situations. That's postseason, early season baseball. But here's an interesting name that I think needs to be mentioned when you're having this discussion. And that name is Johan Santana.
Yeah.
No hitter for the Mets, never the same after it.
I think the pitch count was different there, though, right? I mean, he threw a bunch. I mean, there's David Cone had a couple 160 pitch. Those of you who are listening now, I know we're doing different. David Cone, the guy that pitched for the Yankees, the guy that pitched for a lot of teams, Kansas City, Mets. I mean, he pitched everywhere. He's now a broadcaster on the ES Network. David Cone had a couple of outings that were 160 pitches, I want to say, right? And somehow he got through it. But you don't know what that's going to do to your arm. I think Kershaw's limit was different than Santana was. I think it's a very fair argument. You got to have to side with the player here and just say, and I think this is the easiest way out of it, because none of us were in that position, right? Is to say Kershaw knows his body. Kershaw's going to ride with his team and his manager. He deserves all the credit in the world for that. But I don't know how many more chances you're going to get to do that. And if I was him, I would have wanted to stay in the game at 80 pitches. We're not talking about 120, the 80 pitches, and go further. But he's the one with the ball. He's the one who was on the mound, and he made his decision.
And going back to Johan Santana, how many pitches do you think he ultimately threw in that game? I just pulled it up.
140?
134. And it was after he had a shoulder injury. So 134, and the guy was, man, when he first came up, just dominant stuff.
He was pretty good for a long time. There's a funny story about him in a Rule 5 draft selection by the Minnesota Twins. I forget where he came from. Maybe even
Houston. He did.
Astros.
I remember seeing him in Auburn, New York.
Yeah, he was pretty good for a long time. And I guess that is a cautionary tale coming off a shoulder injury to go out and compete for that personal glory about what your career can be after that. So, Kershaw had an injury in the playoffs and, with the buildup, and maybe he just wasn't ready, and is what it is. In the day, we have to accept that he had his reasons, and I'm sure they asked him what he thought, and then he moved on.
What are you looking at?
Well, I'm looking at this Zoom thing, and it's weird. And it feels like this thing is kind of askew, but it's not. Like I'm looking, turn around, and let me see. Nope. Same spot. We're good.
All right. Another thing that has received a lot of attention in our neck of the woods is Steven Souza, outfielder, journeyman. I guess that's a good way of saying it. Yeah. On Twitter, he was mentioning about how in a series of tweets, he basically comes out and says more than half the league utilized a sign stealing system, and the Astros were basically made a scapegoat when it comes to Major League Baseball and disciplinary action. His first tweet was a response to a mention about people hating Jose Altuve. And he said, listen, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but those Astros guys are actually some really good human beings over there. Souza was in Astros camp in 2020, I believe. He says, I'm not going to get into all that, but you should know that if you think Houston was the only team with a sign stealing system, you're dead wrong. They were used as a scapegoat for the rest of the league. They didn't drag anyone else into it. So Astros fans have really, this has fired them up once again, that basically the Astros, you're rolling your eyes that, hey, everybody was doing it. And why did they blame the Astros? And why are the Astros the one to be made an example of? I'm going to say this. Well, let me get your reaction to all that first, because should the Astros fans just let this go, or are they going to wait for years and years and years for all these quote unquote other teams to finally get blown in to make themselves feel better?
Man. So here's what I got. The Astros were not made a scapegoat. We talked about this off camera, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use point out what you said. Is basically they were made an example, right? And I'm not going to take, you said that, I'm going to back it up and agree with it 100%. They were made an example for a few reasons. The chief reason was because they ignored the directive after it was sent by the commissioner. That's really the reason. I've said it a million times. Until it's illegal, you're not in trouble, right? The minute it becomes something that's illegal, probably should knock it off. Okay. And they didn't do that. Luno himself said, I glossed over the email. I didn't send it down. Beltran has said it. The players have said it. They didn't, no one is, it really is a clear-cut case of the Astros knew to stop and did not. Now, they've also one of the most hated and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to back it up with, there's actually a couple of Twitter plants from Luno and Mike Elias and Astros at the Astros front office, defenders, and they're all over me on Twitter sometimes. Actually, I think I won one of them over. It was beautiful the other day. Okay. But, that front office was selfish. That front office was cold. It was dehumanizing. The players didn't want to be around them. You watch the exodus that's happened since for sense of the core. It's not just because of dollars. If anybody thinks the Astros don't have the money isn't paying attention, right? The Astros have the money. It's whether or not they want to spend it and whether or not those guys want to be here, and they don't. And other than Carlos Correa, who's clearly driven by the highest paid AAV for an infielder, everybody else here would have stayed had they been treated better, and they didn't. And so when it comes to around the league, the vitriol that was there, it's a full bag and full mix from the commissioner's office of these guys were kind of in bed there, helping them revamp the league and change things around and really, tear down a lot of what's made baseball continue to appeal to younger audiences and move forward, fan base generations at a time, all in the sake of bloodless cash. No one, if anybody thinks MLB is hurting for money, like you're not awake. Like MLB has plenty of dollars, no matter what that means. And I promise you, they're not going broke. I promise you, they're not going broke. Okay, but they will go broke if they keep following eventually the things they keep following that come from the Jeff Luhnow front office and Mike Elias, who has now taken that happy show out to Baltimore and watched them become the juggernaut of the AL East that we all knew they would be when he went over there. So what you have is this buildup from the commissioner's office. Look, I backed you, I sided with you, I listened to you, and you screwed me. Like you didn't pay attention to what I told you. You screwed me because you thought we were buddies. They won't ever say that publicly, but that's what happened. And so all of that comes back down on the Astros being made an example. Because when the commissioner says in writing, you don't do it, guess what? You don't do it. That's his job. That's his job. And so when that happens, that's why. Now, for anybody else out there on the other side of the coin, because I've never been hard on the players for what happened. I never have, especially not when you hear they weren't told from the front office to stop. Other people were doing it in the league. As me and Daniel sat and did a spot on Sports Extra, which I've watched probably 100 times, just going over about what happened in that scene or in that season and what had led up to that and our interaction at that time. And Daniel made the comment, essentially, he said, what about everybody else? And I said, we're not there. Like, we're not there yet. We're not there. Why weren't we there? Because we're focused on the Houston Astros breaking the commissioner's rule once it became a rule. That's it. So that's why the penalty was there. Anybody out there who's trying to indict the Astros as poor human beings, the poor human beings are no longer around. They're gone. A couple guys are in different organizations now, but the really bad people that were here, like the bad backstabbing, complaining, bad for baseball people, not here. Players did what the players needed to do. A lot of guys didn't even do it. You've seen Reddick and Altuve and other guys come out and say, we had nothing to do with this. And so get off the players and the fans that are out there booing these guys. 5 years later, turn the page. Now for Astros fans, so that's why it took me a minute to kind of formulate this. They're sensitive to it because they don't want to be held accountable still for a World Series championship in 2017. It's the first one the city's ever had. To me, that's more of an indictment on the people that have been around, not the Bobby Hicks and Ed Wades of the world. And yes, the Jeff Luhnows, who at least took the pieces that were left and traded for quality pieces to come back in and win a World Series. It's not an indictment on the city of Houston that the front office cheated and broke the commissioner's rules. No one's calling the city of Houston bad people or a bad place to be. Players are going to have to wear this for the rest of their lives. It's a mark. Whether they deserve it or not, it's irrelevant. They're going to have to wear it. And the other teams, it was well known around baseball that more than one club was doing it. Heck, the Yankees have been talked about quite a bit. Even Beltran in his interview, he might as well have called it a tell-all because he told on the Yankees and what they were doing before talking about bringing it to Houston. Like, let's go. Understand that everybody was doing it. A lot of people were doing it, but that's not the point. The point is breaking the commissioner's rules. The Astros did it after it became a rule. Pay the punishment.
And to be fair, Jeff Luhnow has said that any type of rumors of the Astros sign stealing, he wasn't asked to follow up on it. They weren't asking me to do anything. It was sort of a heads up, and I didn't think we were doing anything, so I didn't pursue it. That was Jeff Luhnow's response in a television interview.
When was that, and where was I?
We reacted to it after it happened.
That's right. Oh, that's not new. Yeah, Jeff, no. And whoever the guy is following me on Twitter, it was great. Following me on Twitter, defending Luhnow and Elias. And no, you knew the email was sent to you. You are this. You may not be a great person when it comes to baseball, like as far as a human being in the game, but you ain't stupid. Like no one's ever called the guy dumb. Like the guy's pretty smart, right? You mean to tell me of all the emails and micromanaging and text messages and smoke signals and telegrams and all the things he did, the candygrams he sent, and popcorn birthday gifts, all the things that Jeff Luhnow did with technology, that's the one email he didn't read. Are you kidding me? That's the one he didn't read where Rob Manfred goes, hey,
didn't forward.
Yeah, didn't forward. Hey, Jeff, stop it. Jeff's like, what are you talking about? Stop what? Pass this along. For real? Come on. That's the one he didn't do. Now you have to miss me with that. You can say a lot of others miss me with that one.
Jeremy, we had an episode the other night when the Giants were bunting in the 6th inning with a 9-0 lead, and the Padres had a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it because the way baseball is played and the fact that relievers are volatile, like a 9-run lead, yes, it's a big lead, but with 3 more innings and you just never know if guys are going to lose it. Like, I don't have a problem with that.
To me, if you're bunting with a 9-run lead, you're telling me you can't hit or you're afraid to hit. Now, I do think we've lost a lot of the ethics, and people say unwritten rules. I'm going to call it ethics, right? And how to play the game. That said, if you're going to give up a bunch of hits, these players at the end of the year, they're still evaluated on hits, right? The threshold has always been seven runs after the 7th inning, but it doesn't mean give away outs. I've never understood that you want to give away outs and points because at the end of the year, no one cares. They're looking at your statistics and how they're going to pay you and what your performance is. But I also understand there's a balance, right? And bunting in that situation is not a good idea. Doesn't mean you take your foot off the gas. Okay.
Yeah, but there's so many guys though that we talk about how they can't, about situational hitting and going the other way and they can't do it. Like here's a guy that clearly was trying to do something to help his team win.
They were, but they were winning by such a big margin at such a different point in the game. Again, it's a fine line because yes, relievers today will blow up. And it's funny in an age of pitching that's been better than ever. We have more position players pitching. We have more bullpens exploding. We have more injuries. But hey, you know what? Let's ride the pitching's better than ever, Bus. Let's do that one. All these guys, you don't have to hit that. They're throwing hard. It's throwing. It is not pitching. People are throwing. And you know something? The velocity, it's technology. It's a mix of things. Yes, guys are throwing harder through natural evolution, but the pitching isn't better because you got position players pitching. So if you're in a situation where you have position players pitching, and that's acceptable in this game, you can take all the unwritten rules. You can shine them up real nice. You can turn them sideways and use somebody else's catchphrase because it's not mine, but you know where you can put them. And I can just tell you that if you're going to go ahead and we're going to devolve the game into position players pitching, then bunting is fine. I mean, the rules are out the window. We either have the rules or we don't.
I was very interested in seeing and pleased to see Alyssa Nakken coaching first base. Obviously, the circumstances about why she entered the game, we'll leave that for another day. But the fact that she made Major League history was incredible. On the other hand, gosh, I can't imagine that 50 years from now, we're going to be looking back and saying, oh my gosh, what a great moment in baseball history, and wearing that City Connect jersey. Like, I don't get it.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say
City Connect jersey, like the road jersey is your City Connect jersey because it says your name, your city's name on it.
We've gotten really, really ridiculous with some of this stuff, but I'm gonna say it this way, and I'm saying it as somebody who, in every sense of the word, is a minority. Okay, we have now gotten to a point where we're trying to improve differences or eradicate seeing people different by pointing out that they're different. Is this woman qualified to be a Major League Baseball coach or professional baseball coach? You know what? I don't have the answer, and neither do you. Somebody thought she was. She's on the field because she's a Major League Baseball coach. Is it a momentous footnote in history? Yeah, but that's what it is. It's a footnote because she's a human being. She is apparently qualified in somebody's radar. It's not her first year there, right? She was there last year too. Right. So she's been through this now on a team that went to the postseason, did they not? Okay. She's not a rookie anymore. We're not talking about somebody who doesn't have indie foundation at all. So she's either in or she's not. And as somebody who, is look in every sense of the world. I mean, heck, my dad is Yugoslavian and Russian. And how about this one? The Russian part is actually Ukrainian, and the Yugoslavian is Serbian and Croatian. For anybody who's got history, figure that out, how that happened. Okay. And all of a sudden, this minority melting pot through my parents turned out me. This guy. Why do I say that? Because as a true minority. Oh, here's another one. My dad's Jewish, my mom's Catholic. You can't draw it up any better than that, okay? And I'm only saying that because as a minority, all you want to do is just be you. Differences don't matter. Am I qualified or not? Am I getting discriminated against? Well, she's clearly not. So good for her. She's on the field, and go ahead and do a good job. Congratulations. You're the first to do it. But she's qualified, and we can't take away that she's clearly qualified to be a major league coach.
I want to dive into all that, but another time.
Like that one? Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. The local AT&T Sportsnet posted a poll during their game the other day. Which early Astros storyline is the biggest pleasant surprise? I would have phrased it differently by saying the most pleasant surprise, but anyhow. Breggy's hot start, Pena's opening week, Series D and energy, and the starters dealing.
I'm going to say Bregman just because I think this club's going to do is that, as far as he helps carry them. And I think the other guys are still role players. Pena, you're going to need 3 years. I saw something the first night that was very concerning. I saw some better stuff later on in the weekend. Still flashes of the concern, truthfully, but better stuff, over the weekend. You're going to need 3 years. You need, at least 2. You need this year, how the league adjusts next year, and then what happens year after that. So we just need to all kind of hold judgment on that and see what the adjustments are that he makes. Right now, he just needs to be serviceable to help them win. That's what he needs to do. Catch the ball, have some decent at-bats, and have some good experiences. Siri is a young kid, plays a lot of energy, who, if that's his game and he doesn't bring that, I mean, we don't have anything, right? So let's move on from him being a pleasant surprise. Let's just focus on Alex Bregman and the health and the fact that he has a chance to be exactly what he should be, and that he seems to be all the way back, and good for him because that's really good for the club.
I would say the starters dealing. I think that would be the most pleasant surprise because with the shortened spring training, obviously Framber did not have a good last outing, but I think I would say the starters, Verlander, Urquidy, what these guys have done thus far. I think that would be my most pleasant surprise. All right, time now for the podcast portion, where we look back at your old scouting reports. And this one has really, I found it very interesting because this guy was number 19 on your 2013 list. And he was drafted pretty high.
Really?
The player comparison, Lance Parrish.
Jonathan Denney?
Jonathan Denney.
All right, didn't work.
Didn't work. Regular catcher in a major league role, 5-hitter in the lineup. Quick transfer with easy carry through the bag that can shut down a running game. Bat profiles anywhere. Has rock star confidence and swagger. Unfortunately, Jonathan Denney never got out of A-ball. He had some issues off the field. The Red Sox had basically cast him aside after he got in trouble. He was arrested during the 2014 spring training camp when he drove with a suspended license and acted belligerent with police. His license had been suspended because of a DUI arrest. The Red Sox at the time put together a specific program for Denney to help him. He was later picked up by the Kansas City Royals after spending 2 years away from the game. Were there any causes for concern? I think that's probably the easiest.
Well, yeah. I mean, the cause for concern, you said it, but it was put as a positive: rock star, confidence, and swagger. And lots of times that can be used to mask somebody who is insecure. Now, the way this works in scouting is as you get down to the the end of the or into the draft, into the spring, when you pass on somebody like that, it has lots to do with the ask. And because the Red Sox took him, I think, fourth round, and paid
third round,
paid him some decent money. It has to do with the ask, and it has to do with some of the whys that you're figuring out as to why you wouldn't do that, or would you? It appears that, the swagger that we saw was not swagger. It was overconfidence that was based in insecurity and some mischief that went wrong, right? Lots of times that can go the other way. The lights of what he was doing were too big for him at the time. He probably knew it. No, in his senior year, he didn't have a good year at all. I mean, it was really the opposite of everything we had seen leading into that. But that's really why that happens. Some guys can get it back on track because they're just freakishly gifted, like Josh Hamilton, and other guys can't. And he's one of those guys that can't. Biggest concern with guys like that is that their life is going well and they've turned it around, and that the trouble they've gotten to off the field is the thing of the past.
And also, when he first started in pro ball, his first taste of it, man, it was, you mentioned that perhaps he wasn't as good as he should have been his senior year, but he hits 203 with no homers in 26 Gulf Coast League games. You just wonder how much of that first real taste of failure affected a person.
That's a continuation of what he did in high school. He just wasn't right his senior year. Something happened between his junior and senior year. And I don't think the home life was great, Jason, now that I'm thinking back. But, don't quote me on that, but there was something going on off the field that he had in high school that wasn't a great scenario. It just carried over. He never got his career back. Or had a chance to have a career. That happens. It's not something you wish on anybody. Heck, it's not positive. But what I would say is that for him, the biggest key in that is to take whatever was going sideways and make it go forward. But yeah, the swagger that you saw, that can easily turn the other direction. Guys get caught up in the life, they're insecure, and then you see what happens happen.
Unfortunately, another case of a guy that people had high hopes for. He played in the Pecos League.
Sounds like Matt Harrington.
Guess I should talk to the people I know in the Pecos League. But anyways, so that's what we got for this week, everybody. Once again, we kind of threw it together at the last minute, but that's how it goes.
It's we're back at it, though. We're Sunday night. We're in the studio, and Monday we are at the ballpark, correct?
Monday we're at the ballpark.
All right,
everybody. Until next time, this is Extra Bases. Thanks for listening.